I'm Chef Catherine coming to you from the Growing Chef's Ontario Classroom Kitchen, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a recipe that we make for our events at Growing Chef's headquarters all the time, which is olive oil crackers. Anyone can pull out a box of crackers from their cupboard and put it on a charcuterie board, but it is the sign of a true chef to make your own crackers. What I love about this recipe is that it uses ingredients that you likely already have in your kitchen, and it's very simple and easy to get together. So make sure that you've read through the recipe from start to finish. Let's wash our hands and get started. To make these crackers, you really need to only know one technique, which is kneading. And kneading is not kneading the way that a cat does. It is basically folding the dough over on itself in half and pushing forward. I'll demonstrate this for you in a minute. But what kneading does is it stretches the gluten molecules and it develops them with our dough. Gluten is what makes the dough elastic and it will spring back, and we need to really develop those gluten molecules to make a firm cracker that has a nice crisp. Otherwise, if we do not knead our dough very much, it would be very soft like a biscuit. So the first thing that I need to do is pour my flour that I've measured out here into my bowl, and I'm just going to pour the rest of my ingredients. I have my baking powder, some spices. I chose to use smoked paprika and cumin and a little bit of curry powder. You can use whatever spices you want to, and that really will help you individualize your own recipe and make it taste amazing. I'm going to add my salt in here as well. Now, I have my olive oil, which I'm just going to add in. And lastly, some water. I've left a little bit of water out because with a dough, you really do not want it to be too wet. If it's too wet, it'll be really sticky and hard to work with. So I recommend to reserve just a little bit of water until the end. So now I just need to stir everything together, and this will just start to develop the dough. I just have a very shaggy dough at this point. When your stirring is not really going to accomplish anything anymore, now it's time for me to get everything off of my spoon, and I'll just set that aside for a moment, and I'm gonna start kneading it. So basically, I'm going to lift up the dough and fold it over on itself. And I'll do this a couple times in the bowl to get as much of the flour and all the ingredients as possible. So see, I'm just picking it up and folding it in half and pushing it down with all my weight. So I've got most of that flour here. I'll just put the dough onto the table now, and I'm just even going to, with my fingers, just scrape out the rest of that flour. So now we're just going to knead the dough. So I take it, pull it back, fold it in half and push it forward. Then I'll do a quarter turn and continue this process. So making dough is quite a bit of a workout. I need to knead this for about 5 minutes. Right now, if I was to stop, you can see there's very little gluten formation. If I press it, it's just gonna stay like that. By the time I'm done kneading, it's gonna be nice and firm. So when I press it, it's gonna spring back and be very elastic. When I'm kneading, I'm just working around my countertop here to pick up all of those little extra pieces of flour and spices. So as I'm going, it's actually getting quite a bit tougher to knead. That's really good because that's that gluten development that we're looking for happening. If I start, I can press it down. You can see it's starting to spring back already, which is great. So now I'm very happy with the development of the gluten. I'm just going to take my fingers and kind of wrap the dough underneath itself just to form a little bit of a ball and round it out a bit more. So you can see when I press down, it springs right back up. It needs to rest in the refrigerator for about 1 hour, and this will just help to relax some of those great tight gluten molecules that we have created here. And it's also going to hydrate the dough. So what that means is that all of the water within the dough is going to be equalized, and it will just be a much more even, smoother dough to work with. Our dough has rested for about an hour, and now it comes for the fun part, shaping our crackers. So I can really notice this dough is relaxed, it's kind of come down a little bit, and it looks a lot more even. So I'm gonna show you how to make the crackers, and it's a really forgiving dough. I take about a piece that's about a tablespoon, I'd say, in size, and I'm just going to dust my table with a little bit of flour. Let's get dirty here. And just put a little bit on here. And then I'm gonna take my rolling pin. I like the French stick rolling pin for this. And I'm just going to roll it out. These are a really rustic cracker. They're meant to be rolled quite thin, just about a couple of millimeters. I like to roll them into a shape that's kind of like a long oval here. If I get too much flour, it'll tend to kind of not stick. So I want to make sure I only have a little bit of flour. And this is just what we're looking for, right like this. So you can see it's quite thin, just a couple millimeters at most thick. And I'm going to put them on my tray here. Now, if you wanted to be a little bit more refined, you could certainly get a cookie cutter and make your own shapes. But like I said, we're going for a bit more of a rustic cracker. So you'll probably need about 1 or 2 pans just lined with parchment paper to bake these crackers on. Because there's a small amount of baking powder in this recipe, the crackers will puff up a little bit when they're baking. So that's why it's important not to make them too thick, because we really still want them to be nice and thin and crispy. They're almost like a flatbread. All right, so I have just done my last cracker here. I really only used about half of my dough to get 2 trays worth, and this is certainly more than enough that I need right now. So I'm just gonna wrap this up tightly and put it aside. You can actually keep it in your fridge for a couple days and just come back to it and bake some more crackers whenever you want to, because it's quite a laborious thing. It takes a while to roll these out, so it's good to do it in a couple tries sometimes. So the last thing that I need to do before I bake my crackers is I'm just going to brush them and I'm going to dock them with a fork. Docking means just poking a couple little holes in the crackers, and what this does is, because we've used baking powder as a leavening agent, the crackers are going to puff up and have some bubbles. This will just cause it to not be quite as bubbly and a little bit more even in their rise. But if you wanted to have a really rustic kind of bubbly cracker, then just skip this step. With my pastry brush, I'm just gonna get a small amount of olive oil and lightly brush the top of them, not too much. This will again help to crisp them up and add a little bit of that lovely olive oil flavor. The crackers are seasoned quite well already with the salt that's in the dough, but I like a little bit of a crunchy texture on top, so I'm gonna add a small amount of flaky salt just on top too. Sometimes if I wanna make a really bold statement with the crackers, I'll add a little bit of spices or even some seeds on top to give them a little bit more of a pop of color. The smoked paprika that's in this recipe already though has made these crackers this beautiful orangey red color, so I don't think I need any spices for this round. Okay, so I have preset my oven to 425 already. I'm gonna bring these crackers back and bake them for about 5 minutes. Be very careful to watch them because they'll bake very fast. You want to pull them out when they're a nice golden brown color and not when they're too dark. My crackers have finished baking. You can see that they kind of folded up a little bit in the oven. They didn't take as long as I thought they were going to even. They took actually just about 3 to 4 minutes in the oven. I had it on convection, so that makes it a little bit hotter. But they're beautiful, and I can just smell all those spices since they're just baked. I'm just gonna plate them up for a snack here. I have some heirloom carrots that are some pretty colors, and a nice fresh hummus that I made earlier today. I can't wait to dig into these. Listen to that nice crispiness.